All right, so after my HP tuners video I did with the Escalade, from basically stock file to boost, I'm gonna do the same thing with the Ranger because I got a lot of requests to do that with the Terminator X. So basically what I'm gonna do is take the file that's already on there, get rid of everything, start fresh, run the wizard, take it out, drive it, run through the program, show what I'm doing, and do a couple pulls and boost. So basically start until the first couple pulls up to about 10 pounds. All right, so first thing we'll do, I just want to show you guys that I don't have any files on here. Go to File, Global Configs, no files. First thing we'll do is run through the wizard, GCF wizard, do MPFI, GMLS, 8 cylinders, LS firing order, cubic inches, .360. Next, idle speed. We'll do that. We'll just choose the middle cam option. 24 tooth. Choose 43 psi. Injectors, other. And these are 210s, Snake Eater 210s. So I'm going to pick FIC 2150s. And turbo. And I'm going to pick Holley 3-bar. WOT ignition timing. We'll put it at 22. Timing retard per pound. So I'm looking at 14 and 15 right there. So that should be close to start. Target AFR at 0 psi. Shoot for like a 12.5. AFR offset, again I'll look at the 14, then we'll run that down to like an 11.5. Next, drive-by-wire, no. GM, idle air control, transmission control, yes. And it's going to be a 4L80. Tire diameter 29, we'll say 29 and a half. Rear ratio 3.73. So now it's making the base file. So I'll cycle the ignition. I'll turn that back on. Now you can hear the fuel pump actually priming. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go do a TPS auto set. Press the pedal to the floor twice. Gas pedal. TPS auto set was successful. So that should be good. Looking at the time on the camera, that whole process took about 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm gonna turn the key on and I'm gonna try to start it now. And I have to remember that this truck right now has E85 in it. So the fueling is automatically gonna be off by like 30%. But we'll see what happens. So it wanted to start. There you go, second try. Okay, so for my situation, since I know I'm running E85 and it's technically on gas scale right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the air-fuel ratio table on the handheld. I'm going to see how much the fuel is correcting, and that'll help me later when I go into my fuel map. So then I can adjust the whole thing based on that percentage. That'll make sense in a little bit, but I'll show you what to look at. So if we go into monitor and then multi-gauge and then air-fuel ratio, we're going to look at the open loop status, the learning, and then the learning percentage and closed loop compensation. So basically these four here. The learning will come on at 160 degrees, so that means it's up to temp, and then it's learning at that point, and then it'll show you the percentage that it's learning. Okay, so you could probably honestly go drive it around like this while it's learning. But first what I'm going to do is take the file off the ECU. So we'll go to File, Global Configs, and then I'm going to download from ECU. And what that's going to do is it's going to put it on the SD card. And then I'll hit OK. And we'll shut it off. And I can pop the SD card right out of the back. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is go into the Terminator X software. And then we can go open global file. And what I'm going to do is go to choose directory. I'm going to go to the SD card, Holley, FW0100, and then saved GCFs, saved global configs, and then there's your base file right there. Alright, so we can click the file name, open it up, and then I just want to show you right away, if you go into the fuel injector, you go to base fuel and then learn table down here. So you can see just from that idle section, you can see it already has some learning happening on the learning table. So once it hits 160 degrees, it starts learning, but everything that it was learning was just in this idle area. So as I said before, my truck is on E85. It thinks it's on gas because I don't have the flex sensor set up. So it's adding an average of about 26 to 29%. I'm not going to transfer to base on this one. What I'm going to do is go to the main table. I'm just going to take the whole thing, and then I'm going to add that 29% to the whole table. So highlight the table, right click, and then we'll do offset selected. And then we'll do percent, and then we'll do 29%. So what I like to do on these big changes, just to make sure it works right, is I'll pick a block that says 100, and then I'll watch what it does. So that should go to 129, so there it's at 130. That should be fine. So now what I did here is I added that 29-30% to the whole table just to compensate for the fuel type that's in it. So now right away I'll take this thing and I'll save it as a new file. We'll just do today's date. And Ranger 67, 62s, and 210s. So that's the turbo and the injector size, and then I'll save it as a new file. Some IOR not mapped. Do you want to continue? Click yes. So now we have the new file, and the new file name is up here. So that should basically give me what I need to go driving, compensating for the fuel. A couple other things I'm going to look at right away. So another important one is the target air fuel ratio table. Go from simple to 2D table, and I'm going to set this thing up how I want it. So this thing actually does look pretty good. As I come into boost, it goes to about a 12.5. And yeah, that one's actually pretty close. So I think I'll probably leave that one there. But you just want to verify that that's good. I have gone out before and this wasn't adjusted accurately, so I started to roll into boost and it was holding a 14. So just make sure that this is set up right, and that should really save you because that's going to be your target. So it's always going to be correcting while you're driving, and this is what it's targeting. Don't really need to do anything with sensors. We'll go to system, and then what I'm going to do is go to basic IO, and I'm going to adjust my fans. So I'm going to just turn this off. We'll turn AC shutdown and IAC kick off. And I'm going to turn fan 2 off because I don't use fan 2. And I'll change my fans to come on at, we'll say 190. Next thing to do after disabling those, you're going to want to go into the pin map. And then you'll take IAC kick and then pull it out. And then outputs. I'm not going to use electric fan 2 or AC shutdown, so I'm going to pull those out of there. So what you're doing there is you're unassigning those inputs and outputs. When those boxes are checked, they're assigned to a location. When you uncheck them, they become unused. That's why you see the line through them. So when you see the line through it, after they're unchecked, you drag it up to unassigned, and then that input and output will be available. Next, this is just personal preference. I'm going to go to individual cylinder, and then I'm going to do fuel and timing correction. So what I want to do is I want to pull 1 degree out of cylinder number 7, and then I'll usually add a little bit of fuel too. Alright, so spark table. This will get you on the road. It'll get you driving, but you can see that it's kind of not really a very good looking table. So it just has 18 degrees in this whole section here, 22 degrees, 27, 31, 36 in this big old block here. So that's not really a very good table. So what I like to do is I like to keep about half the table is like your vacuum section, and then half of it is a boost section. So as you can see up here, you only have 4 cells up here for all of your boost area. So this is going to be a 3-bar setup. So I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to put it at 300, and you can just change the axis to be whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to go maybe down like right here. We'll go to 100, and then I'll highlight this whole section, right click, and then I'll fill column, and then that'll be my whole vacuum section. And then we'll just do this really quick. We'll just go fill column. So now there's about 15 pounds and there's about 30 pounds. You just have a lot more resolution doing it this way. You don't need as much resolution for idle and cruising, but I like to have a little bit more for boost. So you can go through and manually enter all these how you want, and then smooth sections like this section here and smooth the whole thing. You can see how it kind of starts to blend it. So I can take this whole section here, and then I'm just going to change that to 15 degrees. And then what we can do is we'll do like fill rows or fill columns. So now we have this starting to pull timing here, starting to kind of ramp it out. And then I'll take that same 15 pounds area and go to where it starts to make boost. So let's do about right here. So let's say we want it at 22 degrees at right when it starts to come into boost, and then we can kind of ramp it down to this section. So then I will fill column, and then you can see it kind of starting to ramp back in. This whole section here, we'll put it at 22. So this you can put at 22, and then you can just kind of blend the whole thing. So I'm just doing this real quick. Let's do like fill column. So you kind of get the idea now. That's like a basic, really rough spark map. But what I normally suggest to people is just copy a known good file, because there's a bunch of places out there, like Sloppy Mechanics has a bunch of good files out there, and other people are using good files that are sharing them. So if you wanted to actually take this section and just copy in a known good table, so you can use this comparison feature and then compare to a known good file. So like Sloppy Mechanics, Tune Cabinet, or other good files that are out there. So you go to compare, okay, open a file, and I'm going to pick one here. This is one that I actually used when I was getting Banana set up. Just for reference, I was using one from the Sloppy Tune Cabinet from Brett's car. So I'll add that one in there and make sure it's selected with the little dot here. And you can bring up multiples too if you want to look at multiple files. So I'm going to go to Spark, Base, and then Table. And then it'll bring this up. It'll normally bring it up with this gradient box selected, and you can see the differences. It's basically showing you where the major differences are on the table. So if I look at the base file, you can see this is the file that I had. This is the table that I had with the 18 degrees down here and then about 15 degrees up here. And then the comparison file here has about 20 degrees, 18 degrees, and then about 16 degrees up here. I'm really just referencing like your key idle section and then traveling up in this direction, because you're never really going to hit anything down here. You're never really going to hit anything up here, so it's more critical just in this idle area down here, and then what it's doing as it's traveling up to your boost section. So if you like the other table, you can copy to base, and then if I go into my spark table again, now everything is copied back over. So you can see I got the 18, 20 degrees, 18 degrees, and then this travels up to about 15, 16 degrees. But it also did change the axis here. The axis was slightly different. It does carry over the axis, so just keep that in mind. All right, so after we got the spark table all set up, I'll go into timing versus coolant temp and just make sure that that is flat. Timing versus air temp, make sure that's flat. Sometimes they'll start to pull timing, so I don't want it to pull timing for temp or air temp, so I'm just going to leave it that way. Boost, go into boost setup, and I'm going to change my boost safeties. So what I'm going to do here is put my peak, we'll say at like 15 psi, and then I'll put this at, because I just want to run it, say, on wastegate right away. So I'll put it at maybe like 13 psi for 1 second and revert to wastegate. So you have a couple of different options. You can cut ignition peak, it'll just stop everything, and 13 psi for 1 second, it will revert to wastegate. So we'll leave that there. Then you don't really have to worry too much about like rolling into it slow and watching boost and watching fuel. You can just kind of focus on watching fuel and put it to the floor if it looks good. So that's kind of why I like having that. Another thing I'll do right away, which isn't really a huge deal, and you can do this from the handheld, is going into system and then engine parameters and then fuel pump prime. I'm going to change the fuel pump prime to 2 seconds. I don't really need it for 5 seconds. I like it better at 2 seconds, but it defaults at 5 seconds, which is kind of a long time for the fuel pump to prime. So I'm just going to leave it at 2 seconds and then save the file. And that should be good. Okay, so we can take the file on the SD card, put the SD card in, and then we'll turn the key forward. And you can hear my fan running. So I'm going to go to File, Global Config. I'm going to take that file that we just made and then upload to ECU. And then you can hear my fan turn off, because I changed the parameter in the computer, so now it's not seeing the temperature that it needs to turn on. Okay, and then we'll key off. All right, so that looked like it worked out pretty good. You can see from the video the closed loop compensation and the learning came right back pretty close to zero after we added the 29% back in. So it's already idling right now, pretty close to our target air fuel ratio where we want it to be. It's pretty much ready to go drive it now. So we changed the fuel pump prime, the base fuel map we added for the ethanol, the spark table, set the boost cut, verified the target air fuel ratio table, and we're pretty much ready to go. So what I'm gonna do is go take it for a drive. It should be good for cruising. I'm gonna get it up to temp, make sure it's above 160 degrees, and just go drive it and do some learning. I'll do some decent cruising and start to roll into boost. As long as the air fuel ratio is good, I'll keep rolling into it and just let it learn, and then we'll come back and look at the learn table. Correcting 5 close the other file, and then we'll open it back up, and then we'll go to fuel, and then learn table. And now you can see all of the learning. So you can see most of the table was all within 5%. There's a couple spots like here was about 10 to 15. And then up into boost, it hit about 10 pounds was what I saw on the gauge. So that's why you see these really dark spots. There's like more cell hits here. And about 5,500 RPM. So that sounds right. So it was adding 25%. So it was off quite a bit, but it still showed air-fuel ratio was good. So maybe wouldn't recommend it, but that's what I did. And I mean, that's what's good about going through and verifying that your target air-fuel ratio is set up decent, and kind of roll into it a little slow, make sure it's actually going to work, and then you can just put your foot down. I knew that the boost cut was set. So all I was doing was watching air fuel, and I was watching it correct, making sure everything was good there. So you could do it a different way, roll into it slow and make sure it's okay. But the Holley closed loop compensation is really, really good. So now what I can do is all I got to do is click transfer learning to base. And it takes everything from this table and it adds it back into your base fuel table. So now you can see all these cells are changed. And all these cells down here, everything is all changed now. So before I go and smooth the whole thing, I'm going to go back out and drive it again with this setup. And then I can go through and kind of smooth everything and make it look pretty. But right now I'm just looking at where it functions. Another thing I want to do just in my situation right now is I'm going to look at the torque converter lockup, because when it locked up, it kind of chattered a little bit. So I'm going to go into my torque converter parameters, and I'm just going to set my minimum enable RPM down a little bit lower, because when it did enable, when it did lock up, it kind of locked and unlocked and locked and unlocked, probably because I was a little bit higher up in RPM. So what I'm going to do is lower this thing so the minimum is met earlier, and then it's just going to lock up nice. So I think I had it at 1800 before. Yeah, we'll see what that does. So again, we'll open up the file. I already did the same thing, downloaded it from the ECU onto the card. Same way we did it before. Take the 1121 Ranger file, open it back up, look at fuel, go to the learn table. And that's what our learn table looks like right now. So basically everywhere on the table is within 5 to 6%. So that's really good. Even that pull that I did up here, it's still hitting about 10 pounds. And it's within 2% at that point now. So 2 to 5%. So that's really good. So again, I'll transfer learning to base one more time. And honestly, we could just leave it like that, and not even change or make anything else look all pretty. You could leave the little splotches in there if you want, or you could take the time to actually take all this section here and add some numbers around this. So like this whole section, you could take 182 and run it all the way out. So you could do like this, 182, run it all the way out this way. And then you could probably maybe go to like, let's say 200 up here for this whole section. Fill columns. That actually doesn't even look that bad. There's a little spot right here. Maybe we can smooth this. I'll probably tighten this up a little bit too here. There. Then we can save that. Now it's should be pretty close, and you could probably take it out one more time and do another learn on it. But that should get you pretty close. So basically, this is the same process that I used in the Mustang when I went, the first time I went a 9-second pass, or the first time I went 10-second pass in the car, was the first day that I had the Holley on it. I took it out, just drove it around the block a couple times. I did the 30% fuel change for the ethanol. I took it out, I did one right before I took it to the track, and then I made a pass and it was a 1090, and then I took the learning from that pass and then wrote that, and it was a 990 with a better launch and stuff. So it's basically the same process I used right here. All right, so that's pretty much that. Got the truck to a point where it's pretty much good to put my foot in it. So this tune that I just made, I won't actually use this. I'll just scrap this one, and then I'll write my old file in there. I didn't completely delete it. I saved it to a different location, so I have that one to go back to. Just because of my inputs and outputs and how my boost control was set up and everything, I'll just go back to that other file, but I did want to show how I do it from start to finish. It'll take me probably 3 times as long to edit this video than it did to get the truck dialed in to that point where I can just put my foot in it and drive it. So hopefully that helped you guys. A lot of you guys were asking for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.